Hey guys, Aziel here, and I'm back with another brief devlog for you guys. This time I'm going to go over what I've been working in the background for a little bit, and it is the dungeons for this game. Right here, this is Cartharmos uh, domain, and this place is one of the early dungeons of the game. I think this is like the second dungeon. Yeah, you have one initial dungeon, which is like almost like a tutorial dungeon. And this dungeon here is actually the first real story dungeon of the game. And dungeons in this game are sort of the bulk of the main challenge of this game, Zola's Nightmare. And each of the dungeons are somewhat, they have something to do with a character's development or growth. Like, that's not Zola. So the character that's following Zola around right now, the girl with the red hair, is Afida, and this dungeon is very important for Afida, her character development, and she's actually the first companion that you unlock in the game. Her right here. So yeah, and I'm not gonna go over like some sort of the story beats as far as how you get to this part of the game or like how this comes to be, but I'm just going to go over the mechanics that I implemented for the dungeons. So this is what you're going to expect for each of the main dungeons of the game. And if you take a look at the right side of the screen, ignore the top right. That's just that's where the quest will be, but I haven't. I'm still fiddling with that. It's a little bit buggy, so I'm just keeping it blank for now. But what you really want to be paying attention to is the bottom right corner of the screen, and you'll see that there are some spinning crystals and some effects next to them. So each dungeon, there's four different effects. Well, really three. Um, there's red, blue, and gray, and there's one more, but I'll get to that. Uh, I'll talk about it when we get to it. But the red effects you can see here, like might minus 50. Might is your attack stat, so your attack stat minus 50%, and your mana minus 100%. So there's no mana at all. As you can see on the top left side of the screen in the top corner, you can see the gold shield icon and a zero next to it. That is actually your mana. And in this game, your mana depletes before your HP does when you take damage. And you get it back whenever you dodge an attack. So whenever you time your dodge correctly, when an enemy is attacking you in battle, you'll regain 10% of your MP. However, one of the demerits that you have here is that it keeps your MP at zero. So when you take damage, it just goes straight to your HP, which is not fun. But yeah, so whenever you enter a dungeon, you're always going to have demerits, which are these red effects here. And under these two effects, these two red effects, you'll see that there's a gray effect. Now here's the thing. The gray effect you see at the bottom right here, that cannot be changed. The red effects can be changed. When you explore the dungeon, you go around, you can actually change those effects. You can swap them out for different effects, either a boon or another demerit. But the gray effect, you cannot touch at all. It's part of the fabric of the dungeon. There's nothing you can do about it. So it's just something you have to kind of keep in mind. And the effect here is Fortitude plus 50%. Fortitude is physical defense in this game. And so physical attacks, actually there's certain cards that you can use in the game that's their power scales off of your defense stat or your physical defense stat. So that's something to keep in mind when you go into these dungeons, is that you kind of have to plan and set your build up to be as optimal as possible for these dungeons. Because sometimes when you go into these dungeons, there could be like two or three gray effects that can seem debilitating. So you might want to go in and with like a special build or something to kind of counteract whatever those gray effects are. And sometimes they can be negative or positive. And in total, you can have up to 6 different effects at once. So for the whole game, there's only a total of 6 that can be effects that can be active at a time. And so yeah, just enter this dungeon, and at the beginning of each dungeon, there's going to be a shop with this imp that you can see here. Ignore the items in this shop because this is just a template for now. But this imp, what's going to be unique about him is that he sells items that you can only buy with the red currency that you see in the bottom left hand corner of the screen. It's right now it's currently 0, but this currency is pretty hard to accumulate throughout the game. However, in dungeons, you can actually make a whole lot of these abyss shards, which is this currency, this red currency. So during the game, like when you first start the game, you might get like by the time you get to this part of the game, like I would say like an hour or two in, you're lucky if you have around 50. However, if you do just some of the challenging content in this dungeon, you'll be leaving with probably hundreds, maybe even up to 1,000 if you're really diligent. And another thing with these dungeons is that when you first enter them, or when you enter them, when you're inside them, you cannot save your progress at all at any point when you're in the dungeon, except when you're about to reach the final stretch of it, or which is the sequence stage. And I'll cover the sequence stage at a later date. And after I upload this devlog, I'll probably showcase the sequence stage for this dungeon, because each dungeon is capped off with a sequence stage at the end of it. And the sequence stage is basically just a long gauntlet that you go through before you fight the final boss of the dungeon. If you've seen the big Minotaur guy, then like the Minotaur boss guy in my videos, my prior videos, that's the boss of this dungeon actually. So he's kind of like my early game test dummy boss. So yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and explore this dungeon a little bit. Ignore this guy here. Each dungeon will actually have a quest that you can accomplish, you can take on. And if you decide to skip it and then come back later, you can still finish the quest. So it's not mandatory, but it's still nice because the rewards that you get during the dungeon, what we're doing this part of the game, will be very nice. So yeah, like I said, when you first enter a dungeon, you cannot save. But obviously, since this is the dev build, I can save whenever I want. And that save screen is incomplete too. I'm gonna touch that up. But yeah, so no saving when you first enter. That's a key thing because there's a lot of things that can take place while you're in here. So basically, you have to be strategic in the battles that you pick and choose, because how the dungeon is laid out, you can actually run straight to the sequence stage or straight to the boss of each dungeon. There's nothing barring your path to get there. So if you just want to run straight to the boss and fight him when you first enter the dungeon, there's nothing stopping you. However, as you can see in the bottom right hand of the screen, you have some demerits there, some nasty effects that you don't want to fight the tough boss with, and we want to fix that. So as you can see here, there's a blue crystal here, and what this does is this actually increases my HP by 50%. So we can decide if you want to access it or not. And those swords that you see above the crystal, that indicates that a fight will take place if I access this crystal. As you can see, there's swords down here for this demerit, and this one lowers my brilliance, which is actually my magic stat, uh, my magic attack by 50%. Now, you're probably thinking, why in the world would I want to access a demerit when I can just access boons? Well, if you look if you look right above the crystal, right next to the brilliance minus 50%, there's these abyss shards. And if you take on this battle, uh, you'll get 80 abyss shards, which is actually a lot for this game. Like I said, like by the time you even get to this part of the game, you'll barely have 100 or even less than that, maybe 50 or so. So, but right off the bat, you can get 80 just from doing this fight here. And because you see blue swords right there, that means it's a normal fight, like a normal difficulty fight. So it's relatively easy, if of course you're moderately skilled. Now over here, you can see there's actually a yellow gate here that I cannot pass, at least not right now. And you can just barely see, like right above that rainbow crystal there's red swords. Those red swords signify that that's a very, very tough enemy encounter. But as you can see, the effect there is crystal slots +1. So it does what you're probably thinking it does. It actually adds another crystal slot to the right side of the screen. But we can't get there yet. We have to do something in order to get past this barricade here. And we'll get to that later. So for now, we want to get rid of the nastiest effect that I have, which is this mana minus 100%. That's really, really bad, at least for this class, since I don't have the creaking warrior yet. The creaking warrior is after we complete this dungeon. This is actually the class we unlock, which you see right here. But technically, we're not supposed to have access to that yet. So yeah. So right now, I'm going to swap out this might minus 50. Actually, let's get rid of the mana.